In a major relief for property owners, the central government has proposed an amendment to the long-term capital gains taxes for properties that were brought before the 23rd of July 2024, the day the budget was presented. This allows homemakers to choose between paying a 20% LTCG tax with an indexation benefit of 12.5% rate without indexation. Now remember that this was a major point of discussion after the budget was presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman last week, with many across the political spectrum being critical of this move. In fact, today the Finance Minister informed the Parliament that the incoming amendment would entail land and building assets purchased by individuals before July 23rd, and they would actually have the option of choosing between the earlier indexation regime and the newly proposed standard computation for calculating the long-term capital gains tax. She said, and I quote, "Not only are we coming up with an option, we are asking them to calculate under both. This ensures that nobody faces additional tax burden." This is the Finance Minister's big clarification. Earlier, of course, while putting up a case for the proposed standard regime, the Finance Minister had argued that it was easy for computation, filing and record keeping across asset classes. Not just the opposition parties, but also NDA ally TDP had asked for a review of this move that was announced in the budget. So clearly this change today comes after a major backlash from the real estate sector, including some middle-class owners, over the higher tax liability without indexation benefits to factor into what we see as market inflation. So there is a government that is, of course, listening, but is this move enough to assuage the opposition? Will this actually bring relief to the middle class? And how has politics around this intensified? That's what we ask. Before we go to our panel of guests, let's take a look at what Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said today and what TDP said yesterday on this issue.
Not only we are coming up with an option, we are also saying calculate under both and tell us whichever is the lower, you pay tax on that. So we have given an option, sir. This ensures that no one faces additional tax burden due to this change. In fact, post the presentation of the budget, the amendment now with which we've come in gives an option, gives a fairer option, and gives the choice to the property holder who is going to be selling it. The current amendment, I'd like to repeat this, the current amendment ensures that even in such hypothetical cases, there will be no additional tax burden as a result of the current amendment which I have brought in.
Recently, a lot of people are complaining that too many sections are being evoked. And, for example, if someone is given 10 crores as a penalty for him to pay, if that person has to go for reassessment, he has to pay the 20% to actually go for this reassessment, ma'am. Because of this, taxpayers are actually feeling the brunt. So I wish and I hope the Finance Ministry will take this matter into the account so that we will make it easy for the taxpayers to actually come into the fold, ma'am.
Okay, joining me now is Gopal Krishna Agarwal, who is the spokesperson of the BJP. We have Praveen Chakravarti, spokesperson of the Congress Party. We have Hemal Mehta, Partner and Chief Growth Officer, Deloitte India. We have Abhay Chandalia Jain, who is the Managing Director of Share Samadhan Limited. Thank you all of you for joining me on this broadcast. Starting with you, Mr. Agarwal. I mean, this topic was something that was discussed, debated. Many of us had disagreements on this, and we also saw the Finance Minister reach out to those people in the ecosystem who had disagreements with it. But giving indexation benefits to home buyers for, to cushion buyers, I mean, it gives you a certain sense of cushion. What was the rationale behind actually removing it? Because we know that homes are purchased for a long period, and indexation benefits actually help people. What was even the rationale of doing something like this, which was announced in the budget?
The rationale on doing away with 20% tax with indexation to 12.5% without indexation was very well said by the Finance Minister in her budget speech. She said that when we calculated the average tax on capital gains on real estate and other, the average tax came to be about more than 13 to 14%. So she said that if average person is paying a tax around 13 to 14% in the capital gains category, then with indexation also, So she said ki we are reducing and simplifying it. The logic by the finance minister was, one thing was the simplification of the compliances. Second was, she was telling that we are reducing the tax on an average basis. So these two logics were there to bring this change. But now I think with the acceptance of the finance minister of the both options, it's a very important thing that now the taxpayer will have double benefits.
Okay.
Whichever way he has a lower tax liability, he can choose that. So this is an additional benefit that the finance minister, after many people had objected, because in averaging, there may be some people who will lose with the new regime, and there may be some people who would benefit with the new regime.
Okay.
So now this option has been given to whoever finds better tax planning in whichever category, he can choose that.
Okay.
So it's a very important thing that the middle class, which were at point of time sometimes saying that we have been, we need more support from the finance minister, that has been accepted.
Okay, middle class is the flavor of the season. In fact, the finance minister spoke about the middle class a lot. In fact, Rahul Gandhi himself is talking about it. Mr. Chakravarti, many would say that this is a government that has listened to the feedback that came about in the budget that was made, and it made the changes that possibly it could. You have, however, accused the government of betraying the middle class and the salaried class through the union budget, because there was this removal of indexation benefits and higher taxes on their savings and, of course, investment gains. Why would you say that, sir? Would you be happy that today whatever has happened would actually be a certain sense, would bring a certain sense of relief?
First, I did a press conference earlier today that actually said that we're glad that the finance minister has once again gone back on what she earlier proposed and listened to protests by the middle class as well as the opposition in rolling back the indexation. See, but I think I have to point out something very fundamental here. We can go on and on about technical arguments about 13.5% and 20% and what is the average home and what's the tenure and all that. Here's what has happened fundamentally. When you take direct taxes combined, which is corporates and individuals, for the first time under the Narendra Modi government, individual income taxes are higher than corporate taxes, tax collections. Individuals share a greater tax burden of direct taxes than corporates. It's 45% from the corporates, 55% from individuals. I can tell you what the average ratio was for the last 10 years or 12 years. It was exactly the opposite. Under Manmohan Singh, it was 65% from corporates, 35% from individuals. So fundamentally, we have to agree and accept that the flaw is the corporate tax cut that Nirmala Sitharaman announced in 2019 off budget in Goa has not worked. The burden of taxation has fallen on the middle class. So they're struggling without money. So they keep trying to come up with ways to extract more and more from individual income taxpayers and salaried professionals.
Okay.
That's a fundamental flaw in this. So the indexation was just the last straw, the final straw that broke the back of the middle class. So they may have now given two options, but unless and until this trend changes, unless and until you get the ratio back to corporates sharing a greater tax burden than individuals, we are continuing to we're going to see middle class anger and frustration with taxation.
Okay, that's a very important point. I would ask Mr. Agarwal to give me a response to this. But before that, let me also get in the experts. Mr. Mehta, with two rates in existence now, because the finance minister is also talking about options and that's what has been given. Do you think the government may struggle to estimate tax collections from this source? How do you see today's move vis-a-vis what really was announced in the budget?
No, I think, first of all, it's a welcome move, because this was the ask of a middle class or ask of everyone. And maybe in one of my earlier interviews, I had also mentioned that this probably is required to bring back. So it's a real welcome move. To my mind, I think on the estimation of tax collection, maybe it is difficult to estimate, because this tax collection of 20% with index or 12.5% without index is actually very fact specific. So it's very difficult to figure it out what works better for which taxpayer. But I think broadly, the collection would be more or less in a similar kind of category. So I am not sure whether government is going to lose big time by bringing this option. That's number one. Number two, I just wanted to highlight one another point, that this is actually really not an option. It says that you compute under both the methodology, and whichever is lower is the tax which you pay. So in a way, it's not an option that you can choose 20% or 12.5%. It says that you compute under both the methodology. Whatever is the lower number, that's you pay. So the balance amount under the new regime, you forgo. I think that's the way we read it.
Okay. Mr. Jain, which is better for the benefit of our viewers? Can you also explain what was, the problem that some people saw with the announcement that was made in the budget, and how do you see today's announcement, and which is actually better, the new regime or the old one with indexation benefits?
So there are two methods which we think, that one is the old and second one is the new regime. The new regime is beneficial to the general public at large. Definitely, with this, the government may have collect lesser revenue because people will pay lower taxes than 20%. Definitely, indexation benefit they will get. Number one. Number two is that it will give a positive sentiment in the industry that real estate will boom, that taxes are less. Okay, number one. Number two, long term means what? Long term you should keep for a longer period. And that money which you have already paid the taxes as per your tax slab, after that the saved money you invested. And again charging a higher tax, that was again not accepted by the public at large. Right. So in general, if I can say, the public will get benefit, number one. Number two, the government will take benefit if the property is being kept for a longer period. Okay. Because if you, one day will come when there will be no difference. Okay. Because of the indexation and inflation impact. If you calculate that maybe a few years back, if 7-8 years back or 10 years back, if you bought the property, and if you calculate the tax today at 20% after the indexation and at flat at 12.5%, it may be the same also. Okay, but definitely it will reduce the tax collection of the government, and definitely the investors will save money.
Okay, that's very interesting. Getting back to the politics of it, because Praveen Chakravarti also made a very important point. Mr. Agarwal, leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi, I was listening to his speech. He categorically said that this was a betrayal of the middle class, specifically talking about removal of indexation benefits and also the higher taxes on savings and investment gains. But today, Nirmala Sitharaman has clearly said that middle class is not losing out, and the new regime is actually promoting investment, and which is happening with investment in mutual funds, because that has also increased tremendously. But clearly, Dr. Chakravarti also said that there is a middle class disappointment. Of course, yours is the dominant party, but we did see the numbers come down. Do you think that the middle class that has vehemently supported the Prime Minister is in some ways upset with certain moves, specifically with regard to the economy? And do you think the government has been successful in convincing that it is in their support?
We have to understand that how middle class will be benefited. It is not only through taxation that the middle class is benefited. If you look into the way, we have to separately see what is going to middle class and what is going to the corporate sector. Corporate sector, even after reduction of the rate of taxes, is increasing. Direct tax is increasing multifold in the corporate sector. It is increasing the investment from them. It is creating more money to them for investment and to come up with new projects. So that is a separate issue, and that has been our commitment, that we will, if we want to become a global economy, our taxation should also be in comparison to global taxation regimes for the corporate sector. This is one thing. Second is about the middle class. The opposition, what it tries to it will decide first what will benefit, which narration will benefit it, and then build stories around it. Nirmala ji has very clearly said that majority of taxation for the middle and common people comes from the indirect taxation. Under GST regime, we are drastically reduced from 2016 to current year, the indirect taxation rates, it was hovering around 25 to 30%. Now it is around 12%. RBI report 2 years back came, the average net
Right.
revenue is 11.5% in the indirect tax. Second thing is that even in the direct taxation, the standard deduction has been reduced. Then till 15 lakh of income, till 15 lakh of income, the taxation has been reduced in the new regime for individual tax.
Okay.
And the investment revenues, then support to the various PLI, manufacturing, employment generation.
Okay, so it's not just the taxation
housing.
that is of interest to
So
middle class.
we have to look into the totality of the tax laws. Budget is not only the tax slab. It is very primitive to look into the only tax proposal and see what the budget is doing. You have to look at the overall.
Mr. Chakravarti, jobs and taxes are something that, are of, immediate interest to the middle class. But today when the finance minister was enumerating the new folios, she said that 17.88 new folios have been added every month since 2019, and that unique investors are also growing. It rose from 1 crore to, she said that, 4 crore at present. Do you think these numbers do matter? Because, for the middle class, like Mr. Agarwal is also saying that, the investment in infrastructure is also something that is important. Investments is important. Do you think that is something that the middle class will be happy with?
Can we base this discussion on facts and numbers rather than some political rhetoric? It doesn't matter what the finance minister said or some spokesperson here is saying. Here are the facts and numbers over 10 years. Okay? Direct taxes, indirect taxes. Indirect taxes are regressive. Direct taxes are progressive. World over, since somebody said compare ourselves to the world and we have to be globally competitive, here are numbers. World over, developed economies, they get taxes, 65% of taxes from progressive direct taxes, 35% from indirect taxes. Under Narendra Modi, it's the exact opposite in India. The poor person, the common man, bears 65% and direct taxes is only 35%. I already told you about corporate taxes versus individual income taxes. These are numbers. These are numbers over 10 years. So let's not, and if we talk about reducing corporate tax rates, which will lead to investment, gross fixed capital formation, private sector investment is at an all-time low, all-time low. So these are numbers. So let's talk some sense here. So let's talk some numbers.
Mr. Agarwal, would you like to respond to that, sir? So, the private investment is at an all-time low, and clearly quality jobs.
Economic advisor said it.
So that's very important point. Yeah, we understand that we need to propel private investment. That is what the economic survey told about challenges. And budget, under the budget, you have to make some conducive ecosystem where private investment will build. If the government is spending 11.11 lakh crores on infrastructure, it will create demand for the private sector. If it is open,
but sir, because the numbers have not been growing, our capex has been growing for the last many years. It has not really reflected in the numbers of private investment.
If we want to talk about only the macroeconomic parameters, our fiscal deficit is under control. Our GDP growth rate is highest among the world. Our foreign exchange FDI investment is coming at a huge level. Our stock market is performing well. Our public sector undertakings have unleashed their valuations. So everywhere we are the fastest growing economy in the world. From 11th position in the world economy, we have come to the 5th position. So these numbers will not help Congress, etc. They will not quote it.
Okay.
You see everything. Foreign exchange reserves is all-time high. 90% of our defense procurement is domestically was imported. Now 68% is being procured domestically.
Okay. I'm running out of time, Mr. Chakravarti. Last word from you, sir.
Yeah, I think this is some futile, farcical discussion here. The fact is,
no. If you are talking about numbers, I told you the numbers.
The finance minister came in parliament today and acknowledged a mistake. Okay, so let's be graceful. They said, okay, we may be world's fastest growing economy and this and that. The finance minister said, I was wrong. I will roll back. That was the message today. Okay, so let us be clear. I appreciate that. Just as the finance minister took some of the ideas from the Congress Party's manifesto and put it in the budget, such as employment-linked incentives, apprenticeship, removal of angel tax. I'm also appreciative of the fact that she came to parliament today, said, I am wrong. 7 crore middle-class professionals that file income taxes have protested I will take back what I said in the budget. That's
Okay.
what she has said today, and I appreciate that. But all I'm saying is we have a fundamental flawed tax structure, and we have to reverse that. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me on this broadcast. A budget of progress or a budget of continuity or just a political budget. The debate around the first budget of Modi 3.0 has taken a different turn, with the government announcing a relief of options to taxpayers, a choice to choose between two tax rates for assets, immovable assets. But of course, the opposition is saying that this is not enough. But this is, of course, a rollback that will also bring relief. But that's all we have for you in this show. Thank you so much for watching NDTV. We'll be back with more news and updates on the other side of this break.